everyone. Good morning. This is the first in our interview series. You see Miss Ursula Lentine next to me on your screen, I hope. So we are really excited to have you all here with us. For those of you watching live, welcome. For those of you catching this on the replay or listening to the podcast, this is the Artists as Entrepreneurs podcast series. So this is going to be an interview, this is an interview series where we get to interview creative artists, healing artists, life design artists that are truly making a full-time living following their path. And this is our first episode. We are so thrilled to have Ursula with us. Without further ado, I want to welcome Ursula. Hello.
Hello. I'm so excited. I want to switch to gallery view like you. Okay, Great.
So you can see my face.
Thrilled to be here. Thank you very much. I believe in you and Anthony and the work that you guys are doing personally and in the world and the service that you guys are doing. You're just two beautiful people that I love and appreciate and I see and I value.
Thank you so much, Ursula. That means a lot. And for those of you watching, yes, Anthony is on here as well. He is behind the scenes. He's going to be catching all your questions. So we will be able to ask Ursula questions at the end of this. So don't hesitate to type them in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. And let's get started. So Ursula, I know you. I've known you for about 3.5 years. Anthony knows you quite well. And a lot of our listeners do not. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and just some of your background?
Okay, so currently I am a minister with Centers for Spiritual Living, and I don't usually present myself that way, but that's pretty much the thing that I'm just putting my role together after moving back to Atlanta. And out of all the awards and different certifications I have, I'm like, you know what, that was a big deal. So that's who I am at my base, at my core. And the ministry it's just in healing and loving people and being of service. So I live a life of service. That's how I put that. And I do healing work. I do primarily subconscious work because it's the deepest, most beneficial work that I've come across in all the studies that I've done. So when we go into the subconscious and we talk to different parts of ourselves and we start creating a relationship in our interior world rather than worrying about everything that's going on exteriorly. I also am a pranic healer, and that's been amazing because it teaches me the baseline of all of energy and how energy works, so laws and principles. The ministry is in Centers for Spiritual Living, and that's a metaphysical movement. So it's understanding the laws and principles, how the universe works. So metaphysics is like an understanding, but pranic healing is the application of the understanding of how energy works. And Master Chokkuk Sui, my teacher, our pranic healing teacher, was a chemical engineer. So everything's logical and practical and reasonable, and you can use his technique for healing in any area of life. So relationships, work, success, self-care, all of that stuff. I also do youth ministry. I've been teaching children since I've been 15 years old about spirituality and about love and all of that kind of stuff, these laws and principles, and lead a meditation group. It's been going since 2008 every week. So even while I was gone, 2 other people took over for me, and it's still going strong. So I just stay involved and live a life of service.
I love it. And that meditation circle is how we met you. And I remember the first time we were there, it just really resonated with me and Anthony, and that's why we share the meditation in this Facebook group as well. And, you mentioned that you've been working with youth even since you were a youth. How long have you been in Atlanta, though? Because you weren't born and raised in Atlanta.
No, I was born and raised in Detroit. So it's kind of funny that a healing person comes out of Detroit because it is a rough neighborhood no matter where you are. I was born in Detroit. We moved into a suburb after 2 years old. But when you're around a major metropolitan city, that city has an influence in the whole area. So the music, the crime, the awareness, the vibe, the different cultures, the winter, like it's everything influences. And so I just started Catholic school, and my father did service. And I think that's the influence on me, because he would disappear every Thursday night. And we didn't really like, where's he? So he was doing St. Vincent de Paul service.
Okay.
So I admired that. So I stepped up and I started doing service at the church on Saturdays for some youth that were disabled, and just being with them. And I got spit on.
And you kept doing it anyway.
I kept doing it anyway. So all right, that's fine.
Oh.
And this is what I want to talk about today quite too. Right there in that moment, it's the mentorshipping. So the lady who was in charge of the group, the boy spit on me, and I was shocked, because if you've ever been spit on, it's horrible. It's a horrible feeling, like there's a paradigm shift. And then I looked at the lady like, WTF in the 15-year-old version. And she's like, listen, don't take it personally. This is what's going on. This is how the emotions work for this kind of disease or this condition, la la. And she walked me through it, because I was, like, where's the door? I'm out of here. But because of that act of kindness and awareness, she saw it from across the room. I stayed. And just moments like that can put us in a direction that could last years.
That's pretty incredible to think about. I mean, just that woman's choice and ability to mentor you. And we're going to get into the number of people that you've helped, myself included. I can only imagine if that had gone a different way, the healing that people would have missed out on, and the connection, because who knows where.
That's right.
Would have walked.
Like, I'm not, spit on. Like, I'm never doing service again. Like, that's lousy.
Yeah.
Totally taking that attitude.
And and that's, our daily decisions have that big of an impact.
Yes.
Okay, well, so you've already kind of touched on, how you got to where you are today. I am curious. So have you always known that you were meant to be a healing artist? A healer?
No, I've always been creative, and I've always been weird. So my mom painted our house in Michigan, is covered in her beautiful paintings. Like, every wall has a painting on it. And my sister's very artistic as well. And I drew stick figures. So I was like, I don't think I'm the artist. But over time, I knew that I had artistic ability, because I was always creating. So we would do these skits in the backyard. I had Barbie dolls, and I still work with Barbie dolls now. Like, they've come back into my life after all these years. So I had an entire village of Barbie dolls, and I would adopt any other small doll, and it would be a part of the Barbie. Like, they wouldn't match. Like, you're a Barbie. Okay. So I was very creative mentally, and within story and understanding the human psyche and the human soul, because my Barbies, they all had, consistent characters and traits and relationships within one another. So it's very interesting for me now, looking in the subconscious, to realize, like, oh, I've been doing that all along. And then I have healers within my family. My grandmother used to do tarot cards for her friends at the kitchen table. Her sister had a living altar in her living room, and would take trips to Fatima, and would do healings actually within the Catholic version. So I have that in and then many other people in my family are teachers and, service providers. When I was a teenager, people used to come up to me and say, oh, are you a model? You look like a model, are you a model? And I'm like, no. And my dad's like, hey, we got something here. Why don't you pursue this? And I'm like, you of all people who keep me trapped and locked into my house want me to be in the modeling industry? And I'm like, sure, Dad, good idea. So And what I did was got training, and this is very important because everything I've done, I've gotten professional training. Because if we don't have that professional training, we're not as sharp, we're not as clear, we don't have good goals, we don't know how the system is, because everything has a system. So when I got into the modeling thing, and modeling school, that's like, they have a bad reputation, modeling schools, because bad things happen. But in the school, they were very professional. The woman was a professional model, and the guy was an agent, and they were a couple, and they trained me beautifully in every aspect. So when I went into an interview, or go see, they call them, and people were like, whoa, because I was a young lady and I had it together and I was confident because I had been trained, and that confidence comes from the training. So there's our personal ability, which is our skill set that we were born with. I believe that everybody was gifted something within their system, and it's just a matter for us to try and find it, to say, okay, look, we're giving you a life, we're giving you a culture, a family, an identity, and a skill. And then that skill could be raising babies, or baking cookies, or painting pictures, or telling stories. So as a child, it's good to know these strengths, and for other people to say, oh, you're really good at that, or, oh, great thing there. So when we're with children, you work with children for years and years, to compliment them on their strengths. So they're like, oh, I'm special, because we are all special. And as if we can kind of capture what is that specialness about us and work on that, then the gifts continue to come. So I've always been creative. So when I was doing the modeling, my creativity would come in my awareness, because I could see spiritually, I could see what I look like behind the camera, and I could see the lighting, and I could see my body shape. So I would learn how to pose in a certain way to capture the energy of the lighting, the shadow, the angle. So then I would be designing myself as a piece of art. And then I could feel, as I was moving about in front of the camera, I could feel like, oh, this is a perfect balance right here. And then click, and then the pictures would come out really good. And we wouldn't have to shoot forever, because I could feel energetic, like spiritually, I could feel like, oh, this is a perfect balanced picture. And because of that, I was successful even as a teenager. And then I got flown out to Los Angeles to do a shoot out there, because some people were coming around. The scouts will come around and find. And I really showed up, I put on my best game and put on my best clothes, and, just went on that audition. And they were like, as soon as I walked into the door, energetically, I met my best friend in the world the first day I got there. I did so well because of my training and because of my confidence, that they're like, you know what, you should be out here, you should do this and whatever. We're going to take you to an agency and see if we can get you. And I was 5'7" at the time, which is, at the time, I still am, but it's short for modeling. They don't even look at you unless you're 5'9". So I said, but I'm too short. And they're like, don't worry about that. So they came, we took a photo shoot, it was phenomenal. And then one day I got a letter from Elite, and they said, yes, we're going to have you get $1,000, have a vehicle, get a place to stay. We're going to put a book together for you, a portfolio, get on it. And that's the other thing about entrepreneur, is you need money. You need money. We think,
Really?
I think I'm going to scrape. And because I wanted to get out of Detroit so badly, I saved every birthday money, every money that came, babysitting money. I stashed it. I'm like, I'm getting out of here. I got a plan. I'm getting out of here. So at 18, I had $6,000. And I flew out there, and, I just figured things out. But you do need base money if you're going to jump into something. The best way to do things is to ease. So have a job and then ease into your entrepreneurship. Another time when I was doing real estate, I had just divorced, landed in Atlanta, and I was doing catering gigs, working for a catering company. I was waiting tables at fine dining restaurants because that's where I used to be eating until my life changed. So I said, I love the atmosphere. I love the idea of service. Let me do that. So fine dining restaurant, doing some modeling gigs because that's what I knew. And then starting the real estate practice. So again, professional training in the real estate practice. And everybody in the real estate industry said, you can't do this part-time. You just cannot do this part-time. And they're right, because it does take a full thing. But if you don't have the money to back you up, then you're not going to do it. So I said, listen, I don't have the money, so I can't jump in both feet. So I educated myself as much as I could, followed people, tracked people, joined an organization that really mentors the new people coming in. And then when I had enough stability and enough savings again, I was able to stop those things and slowly move into real estate full time. So it's the self-support that through education, through training, through certification, through any kind of professional education that we can get, and training and practicing, really practicing that. That's how we can get to a place where we can shine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's funny. One of my questions I was to ask was, were you always able to support yourself fully through your healing practice? So it sounds like the story of the side gig. And I mean, I know you were talking about your modeling work in real estate, so not necessarily your healing practice, but, you've done the side gig game, which
right.
Artists do a lot.
As an entrepreneur, at some point in my life, I'm like, oh, I suck. What's the matter with me? I did this, I did this, I did this, and now I'm doing this. Like, oh, I can't get it straight. Oh, what's the matter? And then I'm like, wait a minute. I probably talked to my girlfriend because she's real clear about my life. Like, she'll go, no, you dang, you succeeded in this, you succeeded in this, you succeeded in this. You were top of this, you did this, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. So as an entrepreneur, we change, we grow. So it's not 9 to 5, and it's not working for the man, and it's typically not only doing one thing. So, you talk about the artistry. I feel like I've been an artist my whole time. The real estate, it wasn't very artistic, but I had to be really creative in getting deals done, and working and finding the right person for the right house, and, the right seller, and all of that. So there's a lot of creativity in business. So if you're a creative person, naturally, you can go at anything and bring your creativity into it. So that's what also would make me stand out as a realtor, because they're like, she's different, she's fun, she's personal. I wasn't all about business, even though, I was in a strong business head. I brought more to it. So when we're creative people and we have to do the side gig, we can still bring things into that. So when the modeling career was very successful. I was with Elite in Wilhelmina. I did a dozen national commercials, and then I got married, and everything fell apart. And many years came by, and I had crawling back, and like, okay, now what do I do? And then that's when I was doing the catering, the restaurant, the real estate, and the modeling.
And did you still have your Barbies with you?
No, they were far gone out of my head. So then I did all of that, and then I moved into real estate and did that full time, because it's a life-consuming occupation. There was no room for anything else. And it was really hard work. It's contracts and, high levels of responsibility. And in the meantime, for myself, I was taking these courses in metaphysics. So and then all of a sudden they're like, okay, the next class is ministerial school, ministerial version.
Well, and what took you to from real estate though, you just had an interest in metaphysics, kind of like to reconnect with
me.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
I've gone into the dark ages with my marriage and all of that. So I'm like, okay, let's get back to me.
And did you just look up, did you just kind of see what?
So the thing is, I've always been on my spiritual path because of my Grandma Ursula, and her tarot cards, and we would talk about spirituality and things like that. And because that's an attunement with me already, in the Catholic Church, they wouldn't answer my questions. I got really mad at them. I was in Catholic school for high school, 7th, 8th grade. They were like, the lady, one of the nuns cornered me in the library, and she's like, "You're asking too many questions," So like I would get into trouble. So when I was 18 and I moved to LA, the Mecca, right, California, like they are open. I studied everything I could get my hands on while I was doing my modeling and acting, and did tremendous studies. Studied metaphysics, went to a formal teaching for 4 years, and studied that. So in metaphysics, there was a time period where there was a lot of writing and creativity, and it really came out in the 1940s. So I was studying with one of the writers. When I got married, I was able to stay in practice for 2 years, but because I was by myself and no community, I couldn't sustain, what I knew in the teachings, because my whole world around me taught me something different. So that's why community is so, so, so important. Support. So just like what your show is support. We need, as entrepreneurs and as artists, we always need to be in support. And if we don't have it, go find it. And if you can't find it, create it. Because that's a really important part of survival and being fed. Because artists, we tend to create and give. But if we're not feeding ourselves through community, through a spiritual practice, through morning routine, then we get depleted, and then there's that high and low that artists will swing back and forth on. So,
and it's not an easy swing to be on.
No, it's really, really rough. That's why the community. So when we go high and we create our art, if we don't have something to land on, a community, a family, spiritual practice, whatever, then there's no net to catch us. And then we go down into the dark dungeon with depression, addiction, suicidal, like it goes really far. And artists particularly suffer from that swing. So that's why that platform for something to land on, a net to catch us after we've gone on to a beautiful creative spurt. So back to the story. So I studied the real estate, studied the metaphysics while I was doing the real estate. And then they're like, okay, the next course is the ministerial stuff. And I'm like, I'm not going to be no damn minister. Like, what the heck? I'm not whatever, but I want to take the classes. So now it's 2 more years. So altogether, it's a 6-year program. And then, they put you through the ringer at the very end and all that. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm a minister. All right, whatever. But then I realized my work has always been ministerial. I've always been with the kids. I've always been helping others. I've always, that's my nature. So then the crash happened in 2008. And I was like, that's not funny. Like, what the hell? So, and I'm like, no, I'm going to do this. I put too many years into this. I was getting 15,000 to 20,000 more a year. Like, things were cranking. I've got my systems. I got my clients. Like,
and you were full-time real estate at this point.
Right.
Yes. Okay.
Right. And that's a part of my success, is because I was doing it full time. And then deal after deal got crazier and crazier. And I'm like, I surrender, universe. I understand you're telling me to leave this industry. Thanks a lot. So, and thankfully, because I'm a saver, because I'm an entrepreneur, because I'm artistic and so I'm always stashing. I'm not a big spender, because my life is very fluid and liquidy. And if I don't know, then I don't have that savings account, I have to call my mom and dad, and so when I was modeling, I hit them up for money all the time. I felt so shameful. And then when I got divorced, again, I had to ask for money. And it's just, it's really embarrassing to be an adult and to be like, I don't have my shit together. But it's a part of being an entrepreneur. It's a part of being an artist. And my parents were like, we love you. We just want you happy. We want you well. So here you go. And I would just be very appreciative and considerate with their money. I wouldn't blow it, but, and I'd only ask in complete desperation. And so things like stocking up on household supplies like soap and laundry detergent and toilet paper, that's always in my house, no matter what, because of the early days, when I was doing the modeling and stuff. Because when you run out of toilet paper and you got gas money or toilet paper money, you're just like, oh, this is bad.
No, you go buy gas and print the receipt and then use the receipt. You got to get creative.
Yes, very much creative.
Oh.
Thankfully, I had money saved up, for my real estate thing because of that mentality. And I was able to support myself and get proper training because I had to sit, another end of my business world. So I just had to sit with that, and I'm like, all right, if the rug's going to get pulled off under me like this, I might as well do something that is worth my life, because I'm spending my life doing these things. So what is my thing that's going to make me the happiest, that's going to, like, even if it fails, I'll say, so what? At least I was doing something that fed my soul. So I said, oh, it's the spiritual stuff. And I knew I didn't want to be a preacher because my ministry is always with the youth.
Okay.
I've done teen camps and all kinds of stuff with that, and, teaching children every Sunday for years and years. So I said, okay, what is it? And then in the meantime, I was also gifted by the universe in my Center for Spiritual Living. There was a member, and one of my colleagues is like, hey, this guy's a therapist. He needs a case study. He's learning a new training, and he needs somebody. And I'm like, yeah, free therapy? I could probably use some. So this was the internal family system, the subconscious work. So every Friday I would go over there and we would do the subconscious work. And because of my creativity, there's just like this really rich group of individuals inside my head. And we would do, a session is typically an hour, but we would do 4 hours of work. Yeah. And
wow.
And he'd be like, are you okay? And I'm like, no, we're good. Let's keep going. He's like, okay, this is so much fun. And we were both having this crazy ride off of all my subconscious parts. And we did it in his basement, and then his wife would make us dinner, and she was lovely, and she's like, how are you guys doing? We're like, oh, our minds are blown. And we would tell her about all these adventures we were on. And then he goes, really, you should probably take 2 weeks, to integrate this stuff. And I'm like, okay, I'll be back next Friday. So we did this for a year. So I basically did 4 years of work, couldn't concentrate into 1 year of work.
Wow.
That was while I was doing the real estate. So then eventually I started studying what he was doing to be like, oh, why'd you ask that question? Oh, that's interesting how you made that choice. And then I said, oh, can I do this? I want to do this. And he goes, no, it's only for therapists. And I'm like, oh. And he said, but come to the conference. I got in the conference, and one thing led to the other. And I was qualified to do it under my ministerial license and, again, mentoring. So after the real estate thing took a dive, I went and studied all of this internal family system stuff. So I took level 1, 2, and 3. So I went to the highest thing, again, like the real estate. Not only was I a realtor, I became a broker. I was on the board of Atlanta Realtors. So I always go for the top thing within my category. So that's again, a part of my passion and dedication to what it is I'm doing. I want to be the best that I can be. And we don't know what we don't know. So all that training is what gives me the confidence and the ability and the wisdom to make the right choices on that path.
Wonderful. So you took it all the way.
and pranic healing as well. I took the fast track. So after 2007 got shaky, 2008 was the crash. So in 2008 and 9, I just took internal family systems training, pranic healing training, did a lot of self-work and put my life back in order. And based on the savings, I lived off of the savings that I had from the real estate.
I was about to say, so during that time you lived off of savings with the full faith. At the end of this year, I'm jumping in again.
Right.
And the savings will be replenished.
Right. And then, doing work, starting the work, because when we start a piece of work, a project or any kind of thing, you're learning. So I'm also getting clients. So I started getting clients as I was training as well. And then that's how it built over the years.
Okay. And I'm sure, you kind of get those first few clients, get some testimonials, and then the year was up and you were ready to begin.
Yeah. Launch full time. So
okay.
I full time, the healing work alone full time. And because and as an entrepreneur, there's no guaranteed paycheck. Like people who do art, people who do music, people who create workshops or create, any kind of thing, they know, there's a check coming, there's no check coming. So I've been living, they call it unexpected income, right? In the metaphysical world, they call it what's not a paycheck that is coming for sure. It's called unexpected income. I have been living off of unexpected income since I've been 15, because I've been working for myself as an entrepreneur, waiting tables at 15, and not having a regular check. In my ministerial work, I did have a regular check of $500 a month, to do the youth. And that was the only check that I knew for sure was coming my way. So it's
go ahead.
Scary, because you have to be like, okay, game on. I'm the only one who's here to do this work, so I must show up. And I hope this is working, because I need to pay my rent. I need to pay mortgage.
Well, it's funny that you bring up, a serving gig. That kind of shifted a perspective for me, because it's almost like the serving world in restaurants can essentially prepare you for entrepreneurship, because yes, okay, you do technically have a paycheck as a server, but it's below minimum, right? It's not livable. It's not a livable wage. So you are depending on your own skills to receive tips, and your income is fully based on your desire, passion, level of ability, and all of that. And so what you've been touching on throughout this interview is how to increase all of those. It sounds like to me.
Yes.
The knowledge, the skills, the application of the knowledge, the integration of the knowledge. And I think sometimes that's what can be overwhelming for artists, is the idea of turning the art into the business, because there's finances, there's accounting, there's marketing, there's, so how does it all fit together?
And a boyfriend I had was an artist, was at the time an artist, and an incredible artist. And he worked with wood, and he made wooden vessels. And he was not a good businessman. So he was always struggling with I'm like, because I have a business mind, right? So we'd be spending time together, and he'd be talking to a client, and he was just talking to a client. I'm like, say something about your business, like sell the bowl, and he'd be like, oh yeah, because he was so involved in his thing. He says, it's so hard for me to have two hats on at the same time, because as an artist, we disappear, like this picture, we disappear into worlds that no one else can come into. And then we have to present to ourselves, to other people, like, hi, I'm a normal person, and I want to engage with you, and I want to bring you into this world, or I live in this world, would you like to come visit me, kind of thing. In your music, you guys do that. Your music is like this world. It's very beautiful. It's not of the physical realm. It's energy, it's spirituality, it's connective. There's so many things going on. So to speak about it in a marketing term, you're like, there's no way. Like, that can't move into this. So that's another creative wheel that we have to keep spinning. Like, how can I explain what I do in normal terms so that people will come, so I can invite them into these worlds?
Okay. And where do you think, and I know I didn't prep you on this question, but kind of that block, that energetic block, that physical block of, you mentioned he had this idea that he couldn't sell, like, I can't sell myself. I can't, where does that block come from? And is it the same for all artists?
I would imagine. And because of the subconscious work, I'm going to use that language. So there's a part of us who, right? So we have all these different parts inside of us. So this artistic part, the part that lives in that world, for me, it's my spiritual part, will be like, wow, wow, this is great. Whee! And then my business part is like, okay, like, get it together. Come on. We have to do this. We have to send out the newsletter. We have to do this. And then any part that's insecure, like, oh, people won't like this. People won't understand this. It's too scary. People aren't ready for this. And we're like, shh, like you can't be part of this decision-making process here because you're putting a damper on everything. So you need to be quiet and go over there because the business person, and then the finance person, right? So someone who's managing the finances,
Mm-hmm.
like she doesn't like this part. Like she doesn't want to listen to that part. So she's like, I'm out here on my own trying to make it. And you guys aren't helping, So there's always these conversations around how do I run my business? But because of my training, I can be a professional artist. I can be a professional healer. I can be a professional speaker because I have structure and training. I've got linear thinking. Coaches are very important. I just hired, somebody who I know is being very successful, and she understands me as an artist. And coaches and mentors and teachers are very, very important in that structure, so we can move from this world into the rest of the world and help people bring people into our artistic experience.
Well, and that's needed. We need to bring people into that world that aren't able to get there naturally. And that's the beauty of art. That's why art exists, is to give people an escape, kind of. And
yeah, this boyfriend that I was talking about who did the work, his customers were wealthy people who have done business, who have inherited money, and they don't have access to that artistic person inside of them because they haven't lost everything and said, well, forget it. Screw the world. I'm just going to paint. Or I'm just going to play with wood, or I'm just going to draw, or I'm just going to write stories. Because wealthy people have so much support that they don't go into those kind of dark places, typically. So that's who his customer was, because they were like, wow, you're an artist, and wow, how did you see that? And wow. So by them buying his art, they were participating in the world of the arts. They were supporting the world of the arts.
Patrons of the arts.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, and, say that again.
They, in a way, they get to participate in the artist within themselves by projecting it onto that person and having that piece of art. So people aren't just like, oh, poor person, here, let me buy your art. They're like, wow, I get a piece of this magic in my home.
And it kind of ignites the artist that is within them that they just aren't able to express, perhaps.
Exactly.
Yes. Well, and so what you were touching on before about the importance of coaching, finding people that are better than you at skills, and learning from them, and coaches and systems and all of that. It's not to say this is kind of a question and a comment, because I know artists that are at a level of success without the systems and the balance and all of that. So it's possible to get to some level of success, I would guess, but there's likely a plateau. And you're talking about, getting your art, your healing work, your creative art to the highest level it possibly can be.
Right. But when people are they're like a professional artist and they're making their money, go in and say, okay, what's your support system? And sure enough, there's going to be a manager or an agent or a gallery or somebody supporting them. And that's everybody's ideal. Just give me somebody, you do all the business and I'll do all the creativity. That's probably a goal, but that doesn't always happen. So we have to wear both of those hats and then keep the lifestyle balanced in order to get to that place.
Okay. And but if someone's attempting to do it kind of without that balance, there's eventually a crash.
Yes.
A fallout.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, and I want to get in a little deeper into your skill set and talking to all those different parts. But I'm also curious, what is one of the toughest times that you can remember getting through as your business went through all the different phases, from startup to growth to expansion, and then also what got you through that?
Well, I was doing pranic healing more than I was doing the internal family systems. And the pranic healing realm is not designed for the entrepreneur. It's designed for the person who likes to do service, the person who wants to, be elevated on their spiritual path. But there seemed to me to be a design for entrepreneurial. And I'm like, oh, I could teach the classes and then get the, whatever. So I was busting my butt. I mean, working day and night, really, really hard, organizing classes, having the meditation, getting pranic healing clients. And just was not working. And this was like the third year into it. And we have to believe in ourselves, even though it doesn't look like it, especially in the beginning, the first 2-3 years of any business. They say 5 in the business world. They say, expect yourself to be 5 years in the red. And then after 5 years, if you're not making it, you're not doing something right.
Yeah.
And then, by 6, 7, 8, you should be, cranking it out. So I was in year 3 and I was just exhausted. The money was so tight. I didn't know what was going on. And I sat down with the lady, just by coincidence, the lady who's mentoring me now. And I'm like, look, I can't, and she's like, here, let's work. She put my life on a piece of paper. She's like, how many hours are you spending here? How much money are you getting here? What are you doing? What are you doing? And it was so shocking to me. I'm like, my mouth literally dropped open. I remember sitting in her office in the afternoon and I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, you're going in this direction. It is not making any money. It's not going to make any money anytime soon. You're spending 20% of your time making the most money here and 80% of your time making not enough money and spinning your wheels and doing everything. I'm like, oh my God.
And it's funny. It's such a simple concept of just get it on paper.
Yeah.
And yet again,
but it took her head, because if I did it, it wouldn't look like that. And again, that's the mentor, that's somebody else guiding you and whatever. And it was just one meeting. But because of her skill set to be able to break down things into time and space and numbers, I was able to have that clarity where I would have never, ever come to that conclusion on my own. So she's like, okay, you need to be doing this 20% that makes you money more 80% of the time and do this for service. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then since then, everything made sense and then took off. But it was really heart-wrenching, because I had put so much passion, because I really believe in what pranic healing is and all of that. But if the world's not ready, or if the systems aren't put in place, or, whatever, then we have to pull out, shift gears, and move in the direction that's actually paying the bills and serving people at a greater level.
Well, but you still left space to fulfill your desire to serve. It's not like you have to eliminate, it's just rebalancing the scales.
Right. Putting the 80 and the 20 and the 20 and the 80.
Right. And I remember at the Arhatic yoga retreat that Anthony and I attended with you almost 2 years ago. That's where I first learned about Master Choa's mention of the pocket chakra. And Master Glenn shared with us, we do this work and whatever modality people use, we choose Twin Hearts, pranic healing, Arhatic yoga to get those chakras in alignment, to keep them clean, to keep them full, to keep them energized. We do all this stuff, but we can't forget about the pocket chakra, which for our listeners, there's not an actual pocket chakra. He's just talking about keeping the wallet full as well.
When he was a successful entrepreneur, he started a feeding program. He himself spread pranic healing in 120 countries.
Wow.
So you can't even visit 120 countries, much less teach on a whole new, brand new teaching into the whole world, language barriers, everything. And he was very successful. He had a successful, and talk about side gig. So this man is brilliant, and he chose, like, okay, with all my brilliance, all my abilities, what's the highest level of something that I could do with my knowledge? And he decided that reducing suffering on the planet through healing and teaching about energy would be the best use of his skill set.
That's just a minor goal. Just reduce suffering in the whole planet.
Exactly. That shows you the capacity.
I know.
Even he had the side gig because he had a professional shoe company and he did shoes. He made shoes. He had a shoe factory.
Okay. I didn't even know this about Master Choa.
Yeah, well, they don't talk about that because, like, who cares, in the spiritual realm. But when we're talking about entrepreneurship and how do you finance the spiritual path, Master Joe, I had a side gig, and he had a successful shoe company. And from that funding, he was able to, and that's what I was talking about, that savings account to fund ourselves as we're building our next expression.
Okay. Well, very cool. So what got you through that toughest time was really that mentorship kind of, and just getting clarity on where the imbalance was happening.
Yeah. Reaching out, saying, I don't know what's going on. I need help, which is hard for us as human beings because, we're kind of independent as entrepreneurs, and we're sometimes operating in a vacuum, especially an artist, because they go into a certain space within their system and they're up till 3 a.m. creating. And that's not a 9-to-5 world. So they don't really connect with what I call normal people. So, artists happen to, create in vacuums, but that's what the goodness of reaching out, having a community, having other people that understand you. So you can go like, okay, am I crazy or is this something? People are like, oh my God, that's amazing. Go with that. Or, no, I don't think that'll go anywhere. So then we can go like switch gears and say, okay, let me do this. That's amazing. And, this other thing, it's kind of crazy, but okay, the world's not ready for that yet,
Exactly.
Historically, painters, they said, okay, I'll just live in this little hole and, burn newspapers to keep me warm. And they made amazing things that sell for millions of dollars, but they never knew it because there was no marketing person for them at that time. And they didn't know how to market because they didn't, they just, all they knew is I have to create. And they created, but they died in poverty. Yep. So that's why the balance and the support has to be there. I'll never forget, I was watching an interview about Elvis Presley. And
he was my first celebrity crush.
He's adorable.
But before his Vegas days, like classic Elvis.
Everybody likes the Vegas days.
Yeah.
Everybody loves the younger years. When he was raw, because his authenticity, right? What made him amazing is his authenticity. So he said, I'm different. I got this thing going on. I kind of don't know how to do it, but I'm just going to put it out there. And his vulnerability and his authenticity is what everybody was like, wow, because he was out of the norm, because he kept his individual expression of that divine consciousness inside of him. So this documentary, and then they went to Parker. I think his name is Colonel Parker or something. And he was the manager. So there was a court case, like, if you've mishandled the money and this and that. And at one point in the court case, he was like exhausted. And he goes, look, my job is to promote Elvis Presley. Have you heard about Elvis Presley? And everyone's like, yeah, you did a good job. And he's like, okay, so without me, you wouldn't have heard about Elvis Presley. So, that's why I manage the money in this situation, because I need to do my job and I needed to support myself in a way to get his name and image and everything out there. Because really, Elvis Presley didn't look like he had a lot of business sense, And
that lip.
Right. That's probably why people took advantage of him. And that's why he was able to stay in his artistry. So we, as people who are like aware and say, okay, I have this artist within me, but I also have to manage it and promote it. And on the back end, do a lot of self-care so we don't dive into the darkness and never get access to that light and that gold that we have within us.
Yeah. Okay. So you talked about a lot of tools and skills to collect as artists, both creative and healing artists, to turn their bit, to make their, what?
Any kind of artist, writers,
right.
People who make beautiful food, like people who
culinary artists.
Yeah, make parties, like any kind of artistic expression, any kind. Cupcake.
Exactly. There's
an industry of cupcakes, for God's sake, because these people are like, I want to make cupcakes. That's the best thing I can do in my life.
And it blows my mind.
Cupcakes.
I know. Well, so we've talked about a lot to turn that art into a thriving business, between knowledge, mentorship, application of knowledge, self-care. We covered a lot. but I'd be curious. Community and support. What would be the one, if someone was at a point where they're just like, I'm ready, I've got the creative outlet, I'm doing it. What's the first action step kind of that you would, it can be an action step or a piece of advice, but I really think action is, what's that first step?
It has to be, and I got chills from head to toe. And again, this is my lenses that I'm talking through, is trust. To trust that gift inside, to trust spirit, whatever that is for you, and say, is this for real? Is this like, can I really, really do, like when we fall in love and someone asks somebody, will you go with me? Will you be my girl? Will you, like, that's a whole, you're crossing out into another, like, oh, I don't know, I gotta cross this line in the sand. So it's first to say, oh, I got this, okay, I can do this and this and this. Do I trust myself? And the answer has to be yes, because we will fall flat on our face no matter how set up we are if we don't trust ourselves. And it has to start somewhere. It's not going to be like, yeah. It has to be like, yeah. Yeah, just like when a woman says yes to a man, and today there's so many genders. So when one person says yes to another person, they say, like, we've got enough here. It's just a little baby thing, but there's enough here. There's enough golden sparkle. There's enough, magic here for us to build upon. And if you think about an embryo, it's two little cells, two little pieces of magic coming together. So we say, is there enough magic inside of me that I can trust, where me, my ego, and the magic within me can come together and create something wonderful? Do I trust that? And we have to say yes, and that's our anchor. That little belief of trust within ourselves is going to be the beginning of the rest of, our success.
I love, that's a really nice, focused, so true. Like, that's such a truthful answer. And so I'd actually like, because it's a beautiful idea to think, oh, I trust myself. Woo. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about the IFS work and the talking to the voices, because a big part of trusting ourselves is silencing the things we don't have to listen to and giving voice to the ones we do. And so how do we know? There's so much noise on the internet. There's so much noise in the world. How do we know that the voice that we're hearing is trustworthy, I guess, and
oh, that's an excellent thing. And just like relationships, we're developing a relationship with that voice. So in my world, I break it down to our spiritual nature and our animal nature, our egoic nature. So meditation is really, really important. The meditation we do, the Twin Hearts meditation, is a guided meditation. When people are like, okay, I'm going to meditate, they try and sit silently for 5 minutes. And I'm like, no, that's the hardest one. Like, don't try the hardest one. You will be spit on and you will stop meditating and you will leave the room. Like, don't. So guided meditation, moving meditation, trance dancing, gardening. So meditation basically is anywhere that the mind disappears. People are meditating all the time. They don't realize it. So when we're driving home and we don't even remember the ride home and we weren't even thinking, that's a meditation. I love doing yard work. That's a meditation. So anytime the mind disappears, swimming, running, bicycling, when there's no chatter, that's meditation. The more time we spend in meditation, whatever that is for us individually, the brain and all these egoic parts know, like, oh, we have to shut up now. She's meditating. So they kind of just sit on the sidelines. They're just bored. They're just like, whatever, she's ever going to get down.
And so they learn. The more you meditate, the more they learn, like, oh, this is when we need to sit.
Right. So they're all on the sidelines and there's nobody on the playing field. There's no game. There's no football game going on. And you and the football are just hanging out. And that's meditation. And eventually the football, the silence of the meditation, will start talking and be like, hey, everything's going to be okay. And you're like, really? And those guys on the sideline are like, what? We're not so sure about that. And you're like, so, and then that's that still small voice, because that voice usually doesn't get loud. The loud is coming from the ego parts, the fear, anxiety, worry. So if you hear something in your heart and in your mind and in your soul, like, go for it, instead of like, get out there, go for it, then you're like, oh, go for it. Go for it. Really? Go for it. And then it's just getting enough parts on board to be like, yeah, you've got this information and go for it. My trip to California, that wasn't planned. That wasn't like a part of like on my goals of things to do. It was in the back of my mind. I want to go back one day. But then one thing happened and another thing happened and another thing happened. So when I have this space of meditation within my consciousness, I can start seeing the writing on the wall, is the old expression. Like, okay. It's there, it's in the room, it's not really loud, but it's there. If you look and if you know to look for it, you can see it. So just like when artists are inspired about a next piece of work that they're going to do. They're like,
that's a good analogy.
There's something about this leaf, like this leaf keeps talking to me, like, what's this leaf thing? And then we start moving in the direction of the leaf, and then this leaf becomes this whole body of work, like 8-10 paintings around the leaf and the veins and the symbols and the meanings and all that. So when we're quiet, we listen and we just keep going in that direction. So that's how the trust is built, how the silence gets created. And artists spend a lot of time in the quiet when they're in their art.
Okay.
So if somebody's a musician, go sit at the keyboard and just play for the sake of playing, because that's a meditation. Spend time in your art, even if it's just sketching or even if it's just fooling around. And that's the meditation for the artist within.
And there can be body work. I mean, I'll just share as well, the more I've been doing this meditation with the group that you established 11 years ago, I feel it in my body. I don't necessarily see a lot, but I'll hear a little something, and then I'll have this physical reaction to yes.
And that's because you've been in that space, you can you watch like what's going on in the space, and we feel, hear, we see, we sense, or things come to us and be like, when you're like, whoa, that's cool. Okay, I hope I remember that.
It's interesting. It's been interesting too, because the meditation has been around for thousands upon thousands of years. It's a well-known practice. I mean, it's not prayer. That's a form of meditation. And it's been around, but I feel like only recently is it, quote, trending. And these successful entrepreneurs, not necessarily create the artist. I'm just talking, like a Richard Branson or that these moguls, these big time, Gary Vee, are beginning to talk about the fact that they have daily rituals. They meditate. And so there's no denying that you've got to drop into that quiet. Now that's the long-term practice, do it daily, do it regularly. But I know that working with you is a nice little way to speed up that practice, or that speed up getting to the quiet and having some conversations with those parts.
Right, because all these sideline parts are afraid of creativity. It's not safe. You might end up over there and be stuck, and you'll never come out again, and no one will like you, because ego's like, all about these security things and these safety things and these fearful things, fear-based. So those parts will get in our way and stand between us and the football on the playing field and be like, and they could plague us for the rest of our lives. They could be inherited from our parents for generations. It will be like, look, I got a football to hang out with. Like, what are you doing? And they'll be like,
you might get hurt. You might get hurt.
Right. Or they're just distractions. They're great at distracting, because that thing inside of us that's creative could be very large and bright and shiny. And again, people may not like you, or you'll be rejected from the herd, or you'll stand out and become a target, or, whatever. So these parts are the parts that I would go into the people's subconscious, and together we go in and we find these blockers who are holding us back from loving ourselves, from being our true expression, for shining bright, for speaking our truth. And those parts, like I said, they can get embedded in our system. We can be born with some of them. And we talk to them, and they're talking to us, and we don't understand. And that's, again, the mentor, that outside person who can come in and go like, okay, here's what's going on. And then the healing happens. We can take care of those parts. They'll calm down and sit on the sidelines because they're ego-based, fear-based. And then we can start moving into our spiritual nature, or our gifted nature, or our authentic self, or, whatever you want to call it. But we become calmer, more self-loving, kinder to others. And then there's more harmony in our internal world.
I love it. I love it. Well, my last question for you, as you know, the name of the Facebook group is The Art of Choosing Heart. So what does that mean to you? What does the art of choosing heart mean to you?
Well, you see me do like this a million times today, probably. It's in the heart. That inner voice is the part of us that loves us unconditionally, no matter what. And to create is, to me, the highest human expression that we can have. So in many practices, religions, they say God, the creator. So God created us. Like, I'm not this brilliant to manufacture hair. I did not create me. Something greater than this little package created me. So I feel like we're all snowflakes. We're all snow, but each one is individualized. So the thing that keeps me alive, whatever it is, beating my heart and breathing my lungs, is the essence of who I am. And I can find that essence in my heart. Any creative aspect that comes through me originates here. So that leaf example that I said, where'd that leaf idea come from? Not from ego, but from spirit within my heart. And they popped in my head like, oh, look at this leaf. Oh, isn't it magical? Isn't it interesting? I'll be like, and then the ego parts are like, oh yeah, wow, never saw that before. And then spirit, my heart inside's like, they fell for it again. These guys are so easy, like taking candy from a baby. Because then we start trusting. The ego starts trusting our heart, and our heart says, look, we're going to do this thing. And then some parts might be like, no, that's crazy. But the heart keeps going, no, this is it. This is no one else is doing it. Yeah, no one else is doing it. So there's that conversation. But when we start listening to our heart and understanding that it comes from a place of love and nurturing, then our art just comes out freely and beautifully. When we trust and we say, oh, no, that's outside the box. And our heart says, exactly. And like, okay, here we go. And then
I love it. I love it. Well, there's been such incredible knowledge shared, and we're really excited for people to start applying this knowledge and reaching out to you if they have questions. I want to ask Anthony if any questions have popped up in the Facebook group at the moment. Any questions in there? Okay. But people can, of course, ask questions when they watch the replay. Ursula and I'll be sure to tag you in it to see if you can respond and get them some more answers that they're looking for. I really encourage everybody listening and watching to reach out to Ursula about her healing work. She shared incredible business knowledge for today. I mean, between trusting self is step one. That gives us the space and clarity to listen to what we are meant to follow. Find a mentor or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 that knows what they're doing. And the cool thing about stepping into that empty heart space, that trusting clarity space, is when you find a mentor, you'll be able to know and feel it in your gut that they're worth following. You won't be wondering, are they taking advantage of me or anything like that. So find a mentor, learn what they know, apply what they know. If you have to borrow money, it's okay. People have been there. If you don't have someone to borrow money from, create it. I mean, like the ways to buy and sell and trade stuff these days, it's possible. And it's just really wonderful to see. I'm super thankful to have you in my life. Anthony is as well. And to just see someone that's been making a full-time income from following their heart for years. I mean, decades. You don't look old enough to have been doing it for decades, but that's the pranic healing, y'all. That's the energy work. So Ursula, I want you to share with everyone where they can find your website, your Facebook channel. I know you've got some exciting courses coming up on Facebook, so please share.
Okay, my website is my name, my first and last name, UrsulaLentine.com, and I'm sure you'll put a link
in the comments. Yep.
And not as active on Facebook as I quote unquote should be, but I'm on Facebook. So I have a personal page and a professional page. And off of the professional page, I'll be creating a group, and we will be doing the Twin Hearts meditation twice a month. I am offering a class, like a lecture series, workshop, training kind of thing, twice a month right after the meditation, and that's a paid class. And then the healing work sessions now are doing 6 months at a time, because when people really step in and get serious and committed to themselves and their parts, the traction and the transformation is amazing. So I want to offer that to my clients, seeing me once, twice, or 3 times a month. I'll be doing more speaking, more interviews. So I have a newsletter if people want to sign up to my newsletter. And I'm working here in Atlanta, in California, being bi-coastal. So just pretty much follow me on Facebook. I do have an Instagram account too. So just follow me social media. That's probably the best way to keep track of what I'm doing. And I'm very available. So if people want to reach out and talk to me, ask me questions, I'm available to help them on their path.
Wonderful. And yes, so Ursula Lentine, her personal page is her name, and she's got some great Facebook Lives on there, as well as on your Instagram. I'm just going to add to what you already said because it's awesome. And then Ursula Lentine page is the Facebook page. And like you said, we will be putting links in the comments for sure to make it easy. And on Ursula's website too, you can see a lot of her clients' testimonials. And I will testify, I will admit to not having done the consistent IFS work with Ursula, but I will say the work with Ursula is worth it. And like she said, it's the consistency that really makes some huge transformations within you, which then ripple out. You know, it goes back to that woman that, if she hadn't been doing her work and her practice, whatever that might have been, she may not have been able to show up for you in the way that she did to ripple out the way it has. So.
Exactly. And I have a YouTube channel.
Okay.
With
wonderful.
Lots of videos and adventures and all kinds of stuff.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to get more of your information out to people. We'll get all of those links in the comments of this video for sure. And thank you so much for joining us, Ursula.
It's been fun. I love sharing. It's one of my things in life that I love to do the most. So thank you. And you're wonderful to share with. Rachel, you're always a delight to be with. So I really appreciated the time we took together today to create this and share.
Wonderful. Well, thank you guys so much. Until next time, guys. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.